Welcome, everyone. We are here today to talk about content ideas that sell your digital products. This one's going to be a little bit different than what you are accustomed to so far with these YouTube lives, this new style of content that Jana and I are creating. Coming from a Clubhouse situation, we used to do this kind of thing all the time where we would kind of interview each other. So I'm going to turn it over to Jana because she's going to interview me today all about content that you should create to sell digital products.
Woohoo! Yay! I'm so excited about this one. So we decided we wanted to talk about 3 specific content ideas. So if you're tuning in and you have digital products now, or you are thinking about adding digital products, this is going to be great because you should make sure you have a piece of paper and a pen handy and jot down some of these ideas because this is going to give you such a good strategic place to start. If you're like, oh my God, I have these digital products, or I want to be ready when I have them and I'm not really sure how to create content or what to create or what to say in my content, that type of thing. So I'm really excited to pick your brain about this, Heather, because I know this is something that you have just been doing and studying and helping people with for years. So it's really exciting. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was just to define digital products for us so that we know in the context of this conversation what we're talking about. And I think some of these ideas are going to be great for people regardless of what kinds of products and services they offer. But because we're going to be really talking specifically about digital products and using those examples and whatnot, I want to make sure people know, how you define a digital product. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I define a digital product as something that you sell that you're not actually doing for other people in a container or anything like that. So a lot of people will conflate digital products with almost like coaching and service packages.
Mm-hmm.
No. In this context, in this conversation, digital products are very much PDFs, checklists, courses that could be a course that you create and sell, memberships. My Pinterest system is my longest standing digital product. So far, it's sold also the massive amount of times, like 4,000 times over the last 6 years or however long it's been in existence.
Wow.
Yeah, so those are, in this context today, what I'm talking about with digital products: ebooks, guides, workbooks, journals. As long as you can download it and consume it digitally, whether it's something someone's reading, watching, listening to, or actually filling out and using to implement in their business.
So I think part of the definition lies in the fulfillment. It's something that automatically gets delivered. You don't have to manually do anything to deliver it. It's being delivered digitally. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Makes a lot of sense. And I know, especially these days, there's some crossover, like people are selling courses where there's some support, and they're selling group programs where there's a curriculum, but we're really talking about products that are auto delivered, essentially, that you don't have to really show up too much anyway to actually deliver what people are buying. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point there, before we move on, a lot of people who join my membership, the great majority of them never actually come to live calls. They're not there for the community aspect. They're there for the material. They consume it, implement it, and leave.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Oh, totally.
If you do have digital products that do have crossover, I think that's fine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I almost wonder, I think about whether my course is really a digital product because there is a little bit of support. But like you said, you don't need to partake in the live support to get the results that you're promising in your membership. You can easily, and people do it all the time in your membership, I know, join, access the digital product aspect of it, get lots of wins, learn a lot, implement a lot, make money without ever even having to have a conversation with you or anyone in the group, which is really great for them and for you. It's great for you, but it's also, really great for the person who's consuming the content and implementing it. So it's really good. Okay, so that's a tangent because I feel like we could talk about that for a while too, why it's so good to have to buy a digital product because you can keep revisiting it and watch it on your own schedule, and you can watch it over and over if you want to. You can revisit it a year later, right? All those things. But let's talk about marketing your digital product. So we're talking about content marketing in particular. So marketing where you are showing up and you're creating content. You're being visible with strategic content so that people will want to, you're building desire and trust, right? So people will want to buy your digital product. So I know you have 3 ideas for people who are wanting to create content like that. So take it away. Tell us about the first one.
Yeah, so the first one is A lot of coaches are going to tell you not to do this, to not teach, but I firmly and fully believe in how-to content. It's the way that most people find me. It's the way that they have validated that I know what I'm talking about, and they end up in my funnels as a result of it. So very much how-to content is okay to do. Now, in one of my most recent videos, I talked about, in the lead magnet video on this channel, I talked about minding the gap. So if you haven't watched that video, I would encourage you to maybe watch that later. But in there, I talk about this gap thought process between free and paid. So if you are teaching a how-to, you're not giving them everything in the kitchen sink. You're teaching them that one little thing right there that you want to talk about. So one thing that I teach on this channel is Pinterest trends. I have a video on how to use the Pinterest trends tool. The difference in how I create my content with how-to is I'm not teaching them the strategy or how the thought process works when using Pinterest trends. This is how to use this tool. This is how you schedule your pins using Tailwind. I'm not going further and also teaching them the strategy and how to get the best results and how to really manipulate these things in your business as it relates to the overall Pinterest strategy that I teach.
Yeah. So folks, you heard it here. If you're hearing a lot of people out there saying like, don't teach in your content, you don't want to do how-to content. Heather doesn't agree with that. Heather has always used how-to content. It works really well for her. People find her that way and they end up paying her and buying her things. So don't necessarily assume that just because it's the trend out there, or it's like the latest thing that people are saying that you shouldn't teach in your content or do how-to content, may not be true.
Keeps people stuck for too long. And I know it kept me stuck for a long time too. I was so afraid to teach how-to content, but as soon as I just opened that gate and allowed myself the freedom to do it the way I wanted to do it, the growth and the potential and the opportunity just opened. Yeah. And also the stress around creating content went down.
Interesting. Why? What's that part about?
Because when you're always thinking, oh, I can't do that, or, oh, I can't do this, like you're stuck in this negative thought process around what you can't do instead of what you can do. So if you're always thinking in the negative, then you're not opening yourself up for the opportunities that you could foresee in your business. So then you may not even think about, oh, well, I could create how-to content where I teach someone how to do this thing, but I don't teach them the full strategy. Right. It kept me stuck for way too long. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely know people who are very nervous about teaching how-tos because they feel like, okay, well, if I teach the how-tos, why are people going to think that they need to, to pay me? But you're right. It's all about carving off that little piece. And then also, like you said, highlighting the gap. And I know that you are very generous with the way that you teach. So like, for example, on this YouTube channel, if anyone's finding us and you're kind of new to us, definitely check out the rest of Heather's YouTube channel because there's so much generous teaching, and a lot of it is how-to teaching. But I know very well, I can easily tell that like, it's not the same type of material that's inside, your membership. There's a difference between those things. And I think it just comes down to intentionality, is intentionally making sure that that's the case, that you have a specific strategy about what parts you teach for free, high value stuff that you're teaching for free, and what has to, what's being taught inside the membership that's different and above and beyond. And I like the idea of like, yeah, here's some how-to, but if you want the strategy behind it, all the things you've been learning for the last 8 years as a Pinterest manager and as a marketer, that's a different story, right? And then there was something else I was going to say about the how-to content. I also think one of the reasons you're successful with how-to content is because you're also creating content that is not how-to. Like there's a balance, you know what I mean? You're doing both. And I think a lot of times when you hear coaches or other marketers say, don't just teach all the how-to content, what they really mean is don't only do how-to content, because a lot of people are very comfortable in that zone, just showing people how to do things and being generous. And if you're too comfortable in that zone and you don't create other types of content, then that balance might be off and you might not be able to highlight that gap and get people moving toward your paid offers. But I love this. Like, don't be afraid to teach how-to content. It's a part of a healthy content marketing ecosystem, right? It is. I love it. Okay. Anything else about that one before we talk about the second one, the second idea? I had a thought and I lost it, so it'll probably come back.
Okay, cool. What's the second one? What's your second idea for content?
The second idea is authority content. And a lot of people new to business may struggle with this one. And I know I did for a long time. And sometimes I still do. And sometimes I have to kind of let the leash off and allow myself to breathe. But authority content is content where you are talking as the expert on the topic. So I do authority content. Like one of my most recent videos on this YouTube channel were 3 Pinterest tactics working right now. I think I posted that one maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. That to me is authority content because I'm telling you it's working right now. But I also go on in the video to talk about results that a specific client has gotten without, exposing who the client is. And I got some pushback in that video, actually, in the comments. People like, oh, well, 1% outbound click rate isn't actually that great. And I'm just like, we started a brand new account and I never actually in this video, I realized later, I never actually talked about or showed the timeline of when the outbound clicks started. So if you look at a timeline of 9 months and you're like, oh, you only have, 1% outbound click rate for this content, maybe that isn't that great, but if you look at the actual graph of when the outbound clicks started, you're going to notice it's very traditional to what we see on Pinterest results. So that's a piece of authority content that I have. And I love when people push back on me. That's fine. Showing client wins and testimonials, but actually like real deal stuff, behind the scenes stuff. And the work that you've done. So think case studies as well, like creating case studies for as content and showcasing how you've gotten results for X, Y, and Z, or showing your portfolio of work for things that you've designed. Whatever, niche you're in, your authority content is your expertise. Yeah. It is your own opinions that make you stand apart from the rest of the crowd.
Yeah. I love that as an example of 3 Pinterest tactics that are working right now, because it's very like tangible and people are like, ooh, I want to know what's working right now.
That video has like 2,500 views.
I'll bet. Yeah. I want to go watch it. But it also implies that you know your stuff, which you do. So I love that, because it's like, you're implying by saying that, like, I know what's working right now. And it gives you the perfect opportunity to say, I'm about to show you what's working right now. And I know this because, right. I've been doing this for this many years. I'm in this many accounts every week and month. These are the kinds of results I've gotten for clients. And Jana, have also been a Pinterest expert for the last 8 years. And a 1% click-through rate is great. So whoever said that in the comments,
I know they're watching my competitors.
Not sure about that person's authority. It makes me wonder whether they really know what they're talking about.
I know.
Sure. Have we seen higher click-through rates? Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
But if you can get a pretty new account to a 1% click-through rate, you know what you're doing, lady. So good. Awesome. What else anything about authority content?
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to this at the beginning of when I started talking about authority content. It's probably going to be a pillar of content that you add in after you've been in business for a little while and you have some expertise to share. Don't feel the need to create authority content right away, but also don't hold yourself back. If you've been working in tech and you are now freelancing in your field that you were in tech, then what did you do in tech that you have really strong opinions on? It can also be that kind of content, which leads me into my third example.
Which is?
Polarizing content. So I think of polarizing content as like myth busting, lies, what you should do instead, how to think kind of content, which authority can also be how to think content. That's kind of what you're doing authority content for, is teaching your audience kind of how to think about the topic that you're talking about. But it can also fit into the polarizing content pillar, I feel like. So a piece of content I've done on this channel a couple of times are Pinterest myths that you should stop believing. I haven't done this one in a while because it generally ends up being similar topics in the videos. And I think you and I mentioned, we talked about this last week. I don't like recreating the same content over and over. So, Pinterest
But something
myths,
like that, you could do 3 more Pinterest myths, because I mean, there are definitely 6, like we can think of 6 easily, right?
probably,
So
yeah.
you could do like 3 more, and like you could even do a third installment that's like, still 3 more, or,
Still three
yet
more.
still even yet 3 more.
Um, Pinterest tactics. I actually, here's another example of this one. I did a YouTube video on this channel about affiliate marketing on Pinterest. And if you
Mm,
can you really make $200 a day doing affiliate marketing? Now,
mm,
if you watch any of the other channels talking about affiliate marketing on Pinterest on this platform,
mm-hmm.
what you're going to hear them say is, oh, all you need to do is create a ClickBank account and a Pinterest account, and you just start pinning your affiliate links, and you're going to make $200 a day.
Yeah.
They don't actually tell you
It's like
that.
an ATM. You just stand in front of it and you just like put stuff in and it gives you double out. It's like, that's how it works. It's great. Yeah.
Oh my
I don't know why
goodness.
everybody else isn't just standing in front of this ATM.
Why are we not all standing in front of this Pinterest ATM? What they don't tell you is what I talk about in the YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to stand on that soapbox sometimes and kind of rail against what everyone else is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I did another one recently about Canva and ChatGPT plugin.
Mm-hmm.
Jana, I was so ticked off when I subscribed. I finally subscribed to the paid ChatGPT 4.0 or whatever. Only because of this Canva plugin, because everyone was saying it was so great.
Oh.
Then when I get the plugin and I try it out, it's actually total garbage.
Oh no.
It doesn't do anything that they said it was going to do. And I was so mad.
Yeah.
I made a YouTube video about it, and I was a little frosty at the beginning of the video.
I love it.
So
yeah.
That is the third kind of pillar.
So polarizing. So it's something that might be controversial, that might be almost like, what's the word I'm trying to, like a counterintuitive, right?
Yep.
When you see that, it kind of like, it'll stop people's scroll because they'll be like, wait a minute, she's saying something that's the opposite of what I keep hearing. So it really piques people's interest.
And what this is going to do is it's going to, hopefully, if you do it right. So this is like the YouTube clickbait kind of thing. Clickbait is great when done correctly. Polarizing content also is great when done correctly. So what polarizing content can do for your brand and for your business is actually set you up to be an authority.
Right. Yeah. So if you have something behind it, which you do, obviously not everybody does, but that's one thing. Like my messaging coach recently posted something just publicly, on her social channels about the idea. Shout out to Samantha, my messaging coach. She's amazing. Samantha Hoylett. She said something like, having like being bold in your messaging, because that's her thing, is she, helps people be bold in their messaging, isn't about coming up with like random controversial opinions, like just to stir the pot. It's not about stirring the pot. It's about looking at your own beliefs and thinking, what do you believe that's different? Or I just got my bangs cut and they're like all over the place. I'm like, I can't keep them, whatever. What do you believe that is different, counterintuitive? What are you doing that's different? And then showcasing that. So when you think about it that way, it's not just like clickbait for clickbait's sake, because there's actually substance behind it. When you say, whatever the name of the title was of your Canva and ChatGPT video, when someone pushes play on that, they're actually going to see that you personally tested it. You were expecting this, and this is what happened. And so you've got that substance behind it. So it's not technically clickbait, because I think clickbait, my definition anyway, is when it doesn't actually, the substance is not there. You're just stirring the pot, and then there's nothing to really back up your like controversial statement,
A lot of people do clickbait really poorly, and I feel like they do polarizing content really poorly. And the one example I have is, and I might know the exact person that's doing this, and I'm not going to talk about them, but it's not even in our space. Like, it's totally different space. But a lot of content creators on YouTube actually do this, where they have like a shock factor or a wow factor with like their YouTube thumbnails and titles. And they'll be like, the ATM spit out $500 and I only asked for $100. Whoa. But like the 99% of the YouTube video is nothing about that. It's literally like 1 second of 1 minute of content. And that's the thing they pulled out to get you in. That's
Yeah.
clickbait if anyone
Yeah.
is unaware of what that is, and it's done very poorly.
Yeah, and it's typical of like the whole like monetizing based on views kind of
Yeah, very much.
approach. Because if you or I did that, the problem with that is that your conversion starts with your subject line or your thumbnail or your title, whatever your headline. And if your thumbnail, your headline, your subject line on your email, whatever that thing is, those things are quite equivalent. If they're not actually relevant to and congruent with, like reflecting what the content is in the piece of content, you're going to quickly lose people. And we're not here just to get people to click on our videos. We're here to get clients. We're here to sell our digital products. We're here to make conversions, not just stop the scroll, right? We want both. We need both for our content to be successful. So that clickbaity stuff just doesn't really work well for people who need not only just clicks, but conversions in order to monetize, right?
So we have someone in the chat that's asking some really great questions. Jules from Lubbock, Texas is here.
Hey, Jules.
And her initial question was, my intention is to post, quote, how-to videos, YouTube videos for the sewing items in my Etsy store. Flow will be from Pinterest to YouTube to Etsy. What do you think? And I said, I think that's a great idea. What do you sell in your store? And Jules followed up with quilts, obviously, and then quilting, sewing fabric, and sewing notions. So Jules, I actually really like that you sell the fabric, quilting supplies, and the notions, because what you can do in your YouTube videos is teach people how to use that thing, because that's what people are going to be searching for, how to use a frame, whatever those quilting frames are.
Yep.
Like how to use this, or how to reinstall the, bobbin on my sewing machine. So they're going to be looking for that content, and then they're going to fall into your world and realize that not only do you sell these products that you're teaching them how to use, but you also have quilts that are finished if that's something that they're interested in. So I think that's a really good idea. And then something that you could do for the authority style content, because you've probably been doing this for a long time. If you're selling quilts, you've been quilting for a long time, just from experience. You can talk about brands that you love and hate.
Yeah, I like
Do
that.
you hate the brand Singer sewing machines? Why? Why?
Jules is probably like, no, I don't hate them.
Why should you never buy a Singer sewing machine? And why you should only buy whatever other brand you like. Like that could be authority style content, and also polarizing.
Yeah. I think good, like for authority content, I could think of like, and I'm not a sewer or a quilter, so you'll have to take this, Jules, and like, figure it out, like translate it into like your world and stuff that really works. But like authority content might be like, 3 different types of stitches and which ones to use on what parts of your quilt. Because to me, if someone is teaching that and what they're showing me makes sense, I automatically am thinking, okay, this person knows what they're talking about, right? And even just seeing that title or that thumbnail or that subject line or whatever it is, I'm thinking, oh, wow, okay, if she really like knows these 3 stitches, I didn't even know there were 3 stitches that you needed to use in different places. That kind of thing would be really good. And I love the idea of like product reviews. And then I think like your polarizing content, Heather, like the one you mentioned is pretty polarizing. And another thing I think of is like, you could like make a list of all the mistakes that you've seen people make, and basically just make a series that's about like, I made these mistakes when I was learning. I've been doing this for, 27 years, or, I don't know if that's true, but, or,
doing it for a while.
8 years or whatever. And like, I'm going to shorten your learning curve. Like, I'm going to make sure that like, you don't make this mistake. You're going to learn faster than I did, because you get to hear me tell you what mistakes I made that, I don't want you to make, kind of thing. So that would be a cool one for like polarizing content. So like, don't XYZ PDQ. Here's what to do instead, something like that.
I really like that. Jules, let us know how that feels if you're still here.
I like those ideas. No, and there's so many.
Yeah. Oh, there she is. She says, yes, how to use a seam ripper, rotating mat, sewing machine maintenance. I've been sewing for over 50 years. I told you she's been at it for a while.
My goodness.
And have taught classes at local quilt shops. Oh, great on stitches. I love that you've been doing this for that long. That is a really long time, Jules. And as someone who grew up learning how to quilt, it's it's a lot of fun to teach people this lost art, first of all, but you've also been doing it for so long that you've heard and you already have all of this built into you. You may just need to like dig it out. Content that you can create to lead people to your store. And I think that's just so fantastic. As someone who, like, if I've only been quilting for 5 years, I would not have the level of knowledge that you have being with people for that long. So,
and I think you'd have to think about who your ideal audience is to decide if these are good ideas. But if you're targeting an audience that's like a little bit more advanced and they're learning to like up level their skills as opposed to like beginners, it might be fun to do a series about like the changes you've seen over the 50 years and like which changes are good. Like maybe there's new technology that actually helps us. And then maybe like which changes you've seen that you sort of wish like didn't come along, or changes that have caused people to make certain mistakes, you know, more often. So some like what changes have been good and what changes have been bad would be really interesting. That would be good authority building content, because
oh yeah,
it's going to really highlight the fact that you've seen it all, you know, over the years, right? So I love that.
Yeah, Jules, we love this for you.
We love this for you.
We do.
Little Alexis Rose.
I love Alexis Rose. I need to watch that show again, actually.
Oh, totally. I need to watch it every day of my life. So good.
What else do you have?
We're talking about Schitt's Creek, just in case anyone doesn't know for sure. It's the Schitt's Creek. It's such most like beautiful, sweet little show.
Yeah, I love it.
We were talking, Marshall and I were talking about this the other day, that like it's such a like well-meaning show. Like there's no, one of the things I love about it is like everyone is just, there's really no like villains in the show. Everyone's just like doing their best and they're all like being, you know, pretty kind to each other. Obviously there are human moments, but you know, generally speaking, like no one's like trying to like, you know, sabotage anyone or so
What
sweet.
is the guy's name? Randall, or
it's yeah.
The blonde haired guy that's married to the
yeah, it's been a while since I've seen.
I can't remember his name.
It is something like Randall. Yeah. Okay. We digress.
At some points of the show, he is so like good. The villain in moments, but
yeah. I mean, my favorite part of the whole show though is it's like it's got to be one of the most like romantic shows. Like the, you know, the David and Patrick scenes are so romantic. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, I don't know how we got on this topic.
Jules says, I would eventually like to teach online classes, but I'm really needing to pray about it. Jules, I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah. Online courses are, you know, they're wonderful, but they're challenging. So
yeah, I would actually start. I talked about this in my digital product video training I did in my membership on Tuesday. And this is a video that's already on the channel, I think. Starting with your most minimum viable version of it is going to help you to then figure out A, if this is something you want to do long-term, or B, if it's even, you know, yeah, really something you want to do.
Yeah.
You're capable of doing. So if you wanted to teach classes, I would start with a really simple workshop of like how to lay out your quilt patterns, how to cut, you know, for a Texas star shaped quilt or whatever it is. I would start with something so small and then just do like a really simple way for people to pay you to get into the workshop, and then host it on Zoom.
Yeah. I think the biggest mistake I definitely see people make with online courses is wanting to pour everything they know into like a mega course. And I did the same thing in the beginning. Like, I'm like, oh, I just want to, you know, everything I know, I want to put into this course. And in my mind, I thought that would make it so it would be more valuable. But in fact, like, it doesn't really work that way. It makes it so that it's hard to ever get it to market because you're constantly wanting to add to it and whatnot. It's hard to actually market it because it's hard to talk about how much is in it. And a lot of people don't end up wanting it because it feels to them like it's this like mammoth course with so much that they would need to do. So having these, you know, small bite-sized courses is really, I think, the way to go. Like you said, that minimum viable. I think Amy Porterfield calls it like a starter course. She teaches like 3 different kinds of courses. And it's like a starter where instead of trying to create a signature course that has like all your best stuff, you're just picking one tiny little like transformation point A to point B and teaching people who are currently at A and want to get to B exactly the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to get from point A to point B, like you said, to be able to understand how to lay out the Texas star or what the 3 stitches are or something like that.
I think that's really appropriate for this content conversation that we're having too, of like what kind of content to create. What you said there with how to get people from point A to point B is so easy for us to visualize. I think it's a lot easier for us to visualize that than like how to become a master quilter.
Right. And that's why it's easier to market a tiny little course, because it's so much easier to talk about the transformation that people are going to get. Yeah.
So when you're thinking about creating content along the how-to, the polarizing, or the authority style content, think about that. And that's actually something that I do every single time I sit down and I outline a piece of content that I want to create. I think about where I want my people to go at the end.
Yeah.
I start actually with the end and I work my way back forwards. So if I want them to join, I've been starting to do one YouTube video on this channel a month where I invite people to my monthly deep dive. I invite them to the membership to take part in our monthly deep dive. So this month's topic was like 4 tips or whatever to create your first digital product. And at the end, I invited them to the membership for the deep dive.
Good.
So I'm starting at the end, join the membership because we're going to do a monthly deep dive on this topic.
Yeah.
And then I give them the framework that I actually think through to create all my digital products.
Yeah. So you're reverse engineering. You're thinking this month, I want to have, at least 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of content that get people to do X, Y, Z, the call to action. And then you think, okay, what am I going to create that would naturally lead people to want that? Right. As opposed to creating whatever seems fun or people might want. And then at the end being like, okay, let's see, what call to action should I use here? And like sticking one on there that isn't really the best, most aligned fit. Right.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't have most times I have a place for them to go, whether it's off YouTube. The majority of the time it's actually on YouTube. So here's the next video that you need to watch after you watch this one. Sometimes it is download my strategy guide or join my membership.
Yeah. Well, and you've been creating content for so long and you've focused on creating evergreen content. Like we don't think that most people who come here to this channel and to learn from you and to these lives are as prolific as you are with content, right? Like you've been doing this a while and you have a huge content library of amazing content. So at some point, it kind of becomes like a situation where you can create whatever you want because there's going to be a logical call to action or a next step because you have this whole ecosystem created. But when people are first getting started and they're asking the questions, oh my God, what do I need to create to sell my digital products, right? What do I need to say in my content? That's where I think for the first at least couple of years that you're creating content for an offer, it's so important to do what you're saying, which is to really think like reverse engineer and know where you're going to want to bring people before you decide what content you're going to create.
Yeah.
Then once you get to the point where you're like Heather and you're a prolific content creator, you're pretty safe to know that like, okay, you can create what you want and there's going to be a logical next step because you have so many places you could bring people next,
Yeah.
But we don't want like dead end content, right? We don't want to like work our asses off. Sorry, on a piece of content that's amazing and brilliant and generous and whatnot, but it doesn't really lead somewhere that's going to help us because we didn't reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Always be thinking about where you want to take people next. And your content will work for you, even when you are asleep.
Yeah.
Which is the goal. That's the
what we
goal
love.
Of being passive, right?
Yeah.
The content and like I don't have a passive business, but my content marketing strategy does work passively for me.
Yep. I love that. And that's such a differentiation. People talk about passive income. Is there really a lot of passive income in our space? Not really, because we're always having to improve our offers and support our clients in whatever way that is for even for some of our digital products. And even if you're delivering completely passively, you still have to market, right? And fill your funnel and that kind of thing. But like you said, Heather, YouTube, Pinterest, Google, all the things you teach in the Pin Profit Academy, membership.
Mhm.
All those strategies are the kinds of strategies that do create what I call passive visibility, because people find you on search engines for months and years, even though you just created that content once. So if anyone wants to do that, if anyone wants to shift into creating more passive visibility for themselves so they don't have to feel like they're constantly throwing content into a black hole of social media where you just have to keep creating over and over and over again and it gets lost.
And then you end up with last week's YouTube video about how to avoid content burnout.
Right, right. The place to go to learn those things is Pin Profit Academy. Heather's amazing, amazing membership. And it's so affordable for people just to jump in and join and get in and access all your trainings and everything and get a look around and start implementing right away. So I'll definitely, after this video, I'll make sure we drop the link to Pin Profit Academy in the comments. And we talked about 3 ideas for content that you want to be creating if you're trying to use your content to sell your digital products. We talked about how-to content, which Heather stands behind and swears by. If you're hearing people out there saying, don't teach how-to content, we don't agree. We think you can teach some how-to content, right?
Yeah.
Authority-based content where you're positioning yourself as the authority and the expert. And then the third idea you gave us was that polarizing content, where it's like myths that we're busting or opinions that we have that are different than the status quo, that type of thing. And we gave some really good examples because we were fortunate enough to have
Jules
in the audience who spoke up and gave us
Jules.
her, so we could give you some good ideas. So there were some good ways to illustrate those 3 types of content using Jules's ecosystem too. So Heather, this is also good. If people join Pin Profit Academy, and they're wanting to create digital products or they want to market the digital products they already have so they can sell more, what's in there for them right now? Like, what would you sort of head them to directly first? Where would you want to send them first?
So the first thing that I would send them to is this week's training for the month. The training call for how to create your first digital product happened on Monday, and that would be the first place I would have them go. It's about an hour long with some Q&A.
Perfect.
And then if they want content strategy behind it, there's a mini content strategy course with how to find Google SEO, how to create a content plan, like all of that stuff. It lives in there. I say mini, there's probably 27 lessons in that sucker. Okay. And then you would follow that up with, Pinterest resources beyond that. Perfect. So I think we have 15 or 16 on-demand courses in there now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love the idea too of having a path, so people who are wanting to create and sell digital products, you just mentioned the 2 places you'd send them first. You don't have to go in and like watch every single thing before you implement. You go get what you need and start implementing.
No, and I actually just started implementing a new strategy where when someone joins, I send them a welcome video and I tell them, hey, if you're joining for Pinterest, then these are the courses that you want. Otherwise, if you're joining for other reasons, please let us know what that is in the Facebook group and we will guide you.
So good.
But
so good, Heather. What a great idea.
I'm also rebuilding my WordPress website, Jana, where last fall I had a hacker hack my email and it just domino affected everything in my business related to my WordPress website for the Academy. So once I got that issue fixed, I had some time to get the WordPress website fixed. So come the new year, all of our members will be back in WordPress and there's going to be, the reason I say this is there's going to be custom roadmaps depending on what journey you want to take.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Love that. So good. All right. Pin Profit Academy.
Well, thank you so much for interviewing me today, Jana. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. This was so fun. What are we talking about next
week? We are talking about content repurposing AI hacks.
Ooh, fun. I love that. Okay.
Talking about how AI tools can help us do some of the heavy lifting.
With content repurposing in particular. Love it. Okay, cool.
And
great.
Then the following week, we have a week off. So just warning you guys, next week, we have a show and then we're taking a break for the week of Thanksgiving for America.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all so much for being here. Jules, thanks you for giving us some some content to play off of. And I hope you go pray about teaching online classes, and whatever answer you get, just know that it'll be a good answer.
Yeah, love it.
See you guys next week. And we're out. Sweet.